Good evening, everyone. I don't have any smooth jazz music right now, which is a damn shame because it's how I would like to introduce this episode of the U Talk Show. Because interestingly enough, smooth jazz would probably improve your engagement. And that's what we'd like to talk about. We've referred before to the concept that a democracy can be as strong only as its constituents are informed. But in the sea of shit that constitutes the media environment, in the never-ending press of modern society, when there is the struggle to put food on the table, to be on time to work, to take care of medical appointments, it is very easy to become disheartened. It is very easy to look at the politics happening around you and just say, I don't really care. To decide that what happens around you and what happens to society at large is disconnected from your reality. And this disengagement is a large part of why politics has become such a clusterfuck. Now, here we're doing our part to improve political engagement, and Kyle rightly suggested that left unchecked, this would be a masturbatory round of self-congratulation for us. So,
Speaking of which, if I
aside
could take
from
a minute
making
to
the U
just say
Talk
that we
show,
are amazing and that, like, this us doing this show as a service to all. God damn, I couldn't even get through the joke.
aside from us
Yeah,
making the U Talk show, and aside from you watching the U Talk show, which are,
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, some very obvious first steps, how can we improve political engagement? How can we get past the very understandable mindset that it's just all a bit too hard and a bit too overwhelming? And while I'd really love to suggest guillotines for Murdoch, that's not the entire solution. In fact, realistically, much like a hydra, if you chop down one corrupt media mogul, 10 more will take his or her place.
Mm.
So, with this beautiful idea, I hand over to Kyle for a hot minute. What can we do other than make the U Talk show to get people to
Well,
give a damn?
you know what? It kind of comes back. My first thought is that it kind of comes back around for the reason why the U Talk show was created in the first place,
Mm.
which was that I couldn't single-handedly, sort of on my own, get a media machine started. So a media machine, you'll learn more about it in the documentary that I'm currently working on, which hopefully should be finished in a few months. But
Keep mentioning the
essentially,
documentary. You need to start producing the
I,
documentary.
I am producing a documentary. It takes time, all right, and I can't draw, so I like look. I'm probably going to run a crowdfunding campaign for it for the like to raise the money to hire an artist to do all the artwork and animations for it. But before I do that, I want to actually get the script done and actually plan out the artwork wholesale, so that way I have a clear list of everything that needs to be done. But anyway, so essentially, a media machine. The quick version of what a media machine is a media operation that produces large volumes of content regularly for the purpose of achieving political outcomes through public engagement. Now, corporate media machines, they typically use emotion and fuel their audiences, either love or hatred, of different concepts or, people, and they use identity politics to do that a lot. And I had the concept of a humanist media machine, which would engage people through being thought-provoking and through, asking questions and giving detailed analysis on those questions. Essentially, giving information in such a way as to demonstrate the conclusion without actually having to say it,
Show, don't
without having to
tell.
yeah, show don't tell, and that way people could really learn. They could be, essentially, they could speed run the process of learning about something in a matter of, less than 14 minutes.
Hmm.
Funny enough, the supposed limit of length limit of this talk show, which we almost never keep to. Um, but so what would be great is if we could create a media machine. One which, like one there are sort of two styles of this. One could be like a news type media machine, um,
Yeah.
which, essentially to be like a daily newscast, but it would be essentially, instead of focusing on crap, it'd focus on things that people actually need to know and can act on. Things that people can take actions in the realm of, in order to create change, or further what would be their own interests, and providing the information for that would be needed. Essentially, providing people with, not just raw data, but sort of knowledge and wisdom at the
A
same
certain
time.
amount of analysis, the knowledge and
Yeah.
wisdom. Okay, let's just be entirely blunt here, right? When we look at media machines, we're looking at propaganda. Propaganda can be constructive, it can be destructive. And so when we're talking about providing knowledge and wisdom, we are, of course, talking about cultivating the kind of knowledge and wisdom that we value, that we wish to see. And
Mm,
there will always be a bias in that. But
mm.
this is sort of the first step. I don't know if you've noticed that a bunch of media outlets call themselves like fair and unbiased, when in fact they're anything but. But
Yeah.
they are also asserting this because it's a big lie. But they say it with such confidence that the target audience will not question it. We're going to tell you here at the U Talk Show, we want you to think the way we think. We want you to look at society and see that it can be improved and come up with ideas on how to improve it. And sometimes thinking the way we think means that you will get in disagreements with us. And we want you to think in the way that we think, such that those disagreements can give rise to better ideas.
Yeah. And
But we
on
want
that
to create
actually,
more
on
of
that
us.
actually, on that actually, like me and Horst, we disagree a fair bit. Like I think we disagree on average at least once an episode. Sometimes on multiple things in an episode, sometimes in one episode we'll agree on everything, but on average it's at least once, probably a little bit more than that, each episode.
Yeah.
And that's
Disagreement
okay.
is
Like,
not fundamentally unhealthy. In fact,
yeah,
disagreement is fundamentally healthy. It is how
yeah,
we test our ideas, how we prove them, and when they are insufficient, it is a vital catalyst to producing better ideas.
yeah. And if, like, one thing which is, like, you've probably seen, like me and Horse, like in real time, while we're recording these, real time on this show, sort of rethink things, which we
Hmm.
just said before because of what the other person said. I know that there are several things which I've rethought, because Horse brought up something that I hadn't actually considered, and because
And there are a few
he.
things that I've rethought because I'm perfect. See, I can make the joke with a straight face.
I don't know how anyone. Okay, I don't look. I don't get how people cannot laugh at, like, I laugh at my own jokes before I can get them out. I don't know how people can't do that. Okay, I don't. But anyway, moving on, because we've only got about 3 minutes left.
Sure, sure.
We, like, disagreeing is probably the most healthy thing in debate that we can see. Disagreeing, and the most important part is being okay with the disagreements.
And I
You
think
know,
improving engagement is part of that as well. We need to be able to
yeah,
accept that disagreements will happen and they don't have to be deal breakers. You don't have to avoid. I mean, okay, if half your family thinks that the Rwandan genocide was justified, maybe you should avoid them. That's a pretty out there belief. But disagreement over smaller scale things doesn't need to be unhealthy. It doesn't need to be all or nothing.
even on large scale things, like large nation defining projects, you can have disagreements on that, And I think it should be okay to have disagreements on that. And, to be able to disagree and then just agree to disagree is okay. I actually used to have basically the opposite attitude where I was like, how can somebody not agree with me on this thing? It's crazy. They're crazy. But, I quickly found that wasn't productive. And I quickly found that, I was quite wrong with that because, well, if they're willing to engage in the first place and give it some consideration, then that's really what you want, even if they disagree, for them to give it consideration. Not just like a mock kind of discussion that they have on most media machines and news channels, but
It really
a
makes you
real,
think.
yeah. Also something they say quite disingenuously on those news channels. But that being said, the last thing I think needs to be said with this is that if you want to have more productive discussions, if you want to engage with people more productively and improve engagement more generally on political issues, then you need to improve the political issues for which you are choosing to discuss. Often the only political issue that ends up being discussed in a person's day is matters of identity. And it kills me to see this. Absolutely kills me. It is the reason why I wanted to start a media machine. It is the reason why this show came about, is because we need discussion on things that actually matter. Here's how the discussion goes with identity politics. You know, I like this. I'm in favor. See, it doesn't even make sense. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make something that makes sense able to be demonstrated, but it doesn't make sense. Which is, I'm not very good at demonstrating things that don't make sense. It's one of my great flaws, is that if something doesn't make sense, I don't know how to put it to somebody.
I have a similar issue where if I cannot connect a thought to a concrete reality, my brain just
Yeah,
revolts.
that's exactly it. If I can't conceptualize it, if I can't actually, if it's not a concept that makes sense, like it doesn't, for me, it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be something that is in reality, but if the concept itself has a line of logic to it, has like a coherent logic, then I can commit it to memory and I can recall it at any time in the future. And I can almost perfectly every time. But if it doesn't make sense, it's very difficult to really get there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so maybe we'll save this. I'll kind of jot something down on paper to try and get a proper example out. Before we actually give an example, and we'll do an upcoming video. We'll include it in an upcoming video that we have planned, an upcoming discussion. But for now, I'll just say that if you want better political discussions, then those discussions need to be about the real, tangible things that affect people's lives: the economy, healthcare, education,
And you need to
the
relate them to
environment.
people's lives. Right
Yeah,
now,
and
these are buzzwords. Until we can demonstrate why it is in people's interests to care, we cannot encourage them to care effectively.
couldn't have put it better myself. And with that, we've run a little bit over time, so we'll let you go. But thanks for watching. Hopefully, this helps you to have better political discussions, and we look forward to discussing this more in the future. Take care.
Good night, all.